Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the new generation took over the WWF. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
You know, I started stuttering a little bit because I feel a little bit shaky. I feel the vibes coming through here. We're going to take Wrasslin Raw to another level.
Joe Giammatteo.
This podcast is brought to you by Skittles. Yummy, yummy, yummy. I've got Skittles in my tummy.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett, and we're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. But first, a special thank you to new listeners out there. We've got somebody tuning in from the state of Georgia here in the U.S. Thank you. I will eat a peach in your honor. And also, ladies and gentlemen, Wrasslin Raw has penetrated the Iron Curtain. That's right, Russia. Thank you, Russia. And that is all that you will get. The dire thank yous of an appreciative Westerner. We won't sugarcoat it for you. We know how you don't care for that. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on July 24th, 1995. This Raw was recorded at the Louisville Gardens in Louisville, Kentucky, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
Ooh, I am ready.
Ready.
All right, then, let's get into it. Last night, Shawn Michaels has become Intercontinental Champion for the third time. Keep in mind, folks, that this is the Raw immediately after In Your House 2. This entire intro is a replay of Michaels winning the belt, with the audio of Vince just gushing all over it. Straight to, welcome everyone to Louisville, Kentucky, and talk about a thoroughbred. Look at this one now as Shawn Michaels comes down to the ring for the first match of the night. Shawn Michaels defeats the Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey by pinfall in 5 minutes and 23 seconds. Vince is so goddamn happy to be presenting Shawn Michaels to us all. He cannot stop gushing throughout the entire episode, really. I mean, it never really ends. Anytime he gets a chance to gush over Shawn Michaels, he will.
Look at him.
Thoroughbred. The Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey, not that great at ring psychology. You know, here at the beginning, and he's not even that great with move setups. He lands a really unimpressive botched high spot bouncing off the ropes. I'm not even sure what to call it, but it fell pretty flat, both figuratively and literally. What did not fall flat, however, was Shawn Michaels' baseball slide into the Gigolo on the outside. The Gigolo got sent into the barricade pretty hard. As a matter of fact, the first time the Gigolo works well in storytelling here in this match is when he double teams Michaels on the outside with the Doctor of Desire, Tom Pritchard. That's kind of the symptom of the Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey here, if you want to talk symptoms that aren't related to STDs with him. He is probably a just solid tag team guy. I like the Heavenly Bodies as a tag team, but in singles, Del Rey doesn't seem to work out that well. The work does pick up, though, so this wasn't a complete waste of time. I'm not sure what was going on at the beginning, but things do even out. Things get better as time goes on. It does end, of course, with some sweet chin music. And naturally, we are going to spend the most amount of time possible focusing on the Heartbreak Kid as he fucking strips in the ring. I mean, he took his pants down pretty far. I mean,
yeah, he brought it down to the point where the stomach hair starts to connect with the pubic hair.
Yeah. I mean, we got the full happy trail, and we got a little bit of the pumpkin patch too. Joseph, what did you think of our opener here?
Well, Del Rey put on some weight for sure.
Yeah.
He's been away for a while. And I thought it was a pretty good match. I thought that there was some tasteful interference by Tom Pritchard in this match. It wasn't really overdone. But yeah, I mean, overall, it was a good match. I don't think it was a great match. Jimmy Del Rey, even though he put on some weight, he still performed pretty well, I think. And yeah, the strip down was hilarious. I guess this is where Shawn Michaels started really acting like an asshole during this time period. He by now he probably knows he's, gonna get that title shot sometime soon. WrestleMania 12 is Shawn Michaels winning over Bret Hart, right? I think Vince probably already has that in his mind at this point, just from his gushing, just nonstop gushing. But yeah, I mean, the match was pretty good, and I like that they showed video highlights from In Your House. I always like that better than just the photo stills, because they don't want to give away too much for people to buy the encore. So I like that as well.
This started off, and yeah, Jimmy Del Rey, he maybe is a much better tag team wrestler than he is a singles wrestler, but I do have to give this match credit that this wasn't a jobber match. We could have, having Shawn Michaels just 24 hours ago coming off a grueling 20-minute match, you would have thought they would throw him into just some throwaway jobber match, but he's actually up against a legitimate mid-carder here in Jimmy Del Rey, and, the botched move off the top rope that you mentioned, Bartlett, yeah, that was a little bit shaky, but I thought that he redeemed himself, going on, though. There's some really great back and forth between Michaels, and I thought that Jimmy Del Rey, got the hatred of the crowd involved pretty good. The part where you're talking about where he was on the outside and Michaels does that baseball slide, and then he lifts himself back in the ring, and I just loved that shit-eating grin on Michaels' face as the crowd goes crazy. Like, you could just tell he's sucking it up big time, just how much this crowd loves him. He did that classic double noggin knocker. I love that move. I don't care how old school it is. It's a move I love. Del Rey, to his credit, I thought that reversal into the DDT that he did when he gets up and flexes for the crowd, that was a good looking move. I thought he pulled that one off pretty great. You have to love the hip gyrations and Vince saying, "That's repulsive." I also have to mention Michaels towards the end when he rallies for the win finally. He does that great looking flying punch, and I just love it more and more every time I see it. It's just fantastic looking. And then he nails that flying elbow, and he got some serious distance on it. So I'm kind of more with you, Joe. I thought this was a pretty solid, entertaining match. I mean, Del Rey is no superstar, but I thought this was a solid match. I enjoyed it, and a pretty decent way to kick off Raw.
Jiggly Jimmy Del Rey.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not really strongly disagreeing with you guys on this, because like I said, it did get brought back from the brink. I just think there was too much dissonance going on here. Shawn Michaels is just too high level of a performer. Jimmy Del Rey, too much of a tag team guy. And like I said during my little breakdown there, they did adjust and come to a nice, even position about halfway through the match so that they could finish solidly. It's just, for me at least, that's what it was a neutral match. I can't say that this was great, or I don't even know if I can say it's good, but it certainly wasn't bad either. I think this might be where serviceable is the most appropriate adjective for me personally. But, hey man, whatever. That's why we're all here, so we can disagree like civilized folks, right?
You're wrong!
Fuck you.
Thank you. I was expecting that. Betting on it. Well, we're going to move it along now to our next segment. Last night. So, despite the fact that Double J and the Roadie walked out, there's not some degree of speculation that there's some lip syncing going on during Double J's performance that last night. There was quite a bit of speculation that there was lip syncing going on during Double J's performance last night. This was just really weird. Knowing what happened It was really weird to see some of this stuff. Double J was apparently booed after that performance. I don't quite remember that. Do you?
No.
No.
I mean, he wasn't cheered out of the building, but according to Vince, Double J was booed after his performance of With My Baby Tonight. And now let's look at Shawn Michaels' victory again for a while. Let's just sit back and bask.
My
bask
God,
in it.
he's beautiful.
Whoa! When we're done with that, we get a replay of Doc Hendricks giving his frantic backstage report regarding the Roadie and Double J. But I couldn't understand any of it because Vince was talking over it the whole time, and the two of them kind of canceled out any understanding on my part and became noise. So, can't really tell you what that was about. Back at ringside here, though, it's being speculated again that Double J, you know, the guy who no longer works for the WWF, might never sing again. It's weird that they would think that, considering he doesn't work for them anymore. But we've got Bret Hart and Hakushi in action here tonight, so don't forget about that. As a matter of fact, let's remind everyone about what's going on there. It all started 4 fucking months ago. Remember that, when Bret Hart was honored by the Japanese for some reason. We do get a great replay of the head in the burlap sack. That guy will come back to visit us later. Thank Friar Ferguson. But thanks to Coliseum Home Video, we're going to continue replaying the entire history of the Bret Hart-Hakushi feud. Before we move along, Joe, please, what did you think about the revelation that some lip syncing had allegedly happened and the refresher on the Bret Hart-Hakushi feud?
I think that with the Hakushi and Bret Hart feud, I'll kind of start with that. Did we see that attack on Superstars already? Because I didn't remember it.
I don't remember it either.
Yeah.
Well, with 4 months worth of history going on here, I'm sure there's a couple things that we might have seen but don't remember.
Yeah. I don't remember seeing that, so I guess it was kind of good to see that. But the thing that was weird about this was they talked about that feud and then they went right into a totally different match right after. So I thought that was bizarre. I was totally expecting to see Bret Hart versus Hakushi next after that. And just kind of backtracking a little bit, the teasing that the Roadie was singing, I don't know, maybe Vince, I mean, it's just one day after the walkout, so maybe Vince was thinking that those guys would come back. Who knows?
Yeah, same here. I was just, it felt a little bit odd hearing Vince talk about this continuing storyline after hearing Joe's explanation as to what happened. I think you're probably right. Just 24 hours after the show, maybe Vince thinks that things aren't completely soured yet. As far as the Bret Hart-Hakushi thing, I guess it was kind of nice to have this little bit of a refresher of their feud since they're going to have a match, but it was a bit odd that it didn't lead into their match.
Yeah, agreed on that one. And I mean, I keep going back to that little tidbit of information I got from Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard about this whole thing with Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie. Supposedly, according to Pritchard, once they left the venue, they went back to Jerry Jarrett's place and got in the hot tub, and Jerry Jarrett called Jerry the King Lawler to kind of rub it in. Well, I shouldn't say rub it in, but to inform Jerry the King Lawler that Jeff Jarrett and the Roadie were currently at Jerry Jarrett's place in the hot tub hanging out and having a good time. So, I don't know. They had to have known that something was up at least.
Oh, sure.
But, I mean...
But maybe they thought it could be salvaged at this point.
I don't know. The whole thing just strikes me as odd, is all I'm saying. But you know what, though? Back then, if we were contemporary fans watching, we wouldn't have known any of this. So I just have to try to work on my suspension of disbelief, I guess. But kudos to Vince for keeping it kayfabe with this shit, though. So that's good. As far as Bret Hart and Hakushi, man, I just wish we hadn't have had all of the shit in between. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish it hadn't been a 4-month gap of all that shit.
Mm-hmm.
We could have just got straight to it. Well, anyway, speaking of straight to it, bang, bang. And that's not Cactus Jack. It's our next match. The Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart, defeat John Faulkner and Rick Stockhauser by pinfall in 3 minutes. And John Faulkner and Rick Stockhauser are our Jobbers of the Week, plural. Take it, Ryan.
Thank you, Jason. John Faulkner and Rick Stockhauser are this week's jobbers. I'm doing them together because these are two more Monday Night Specials. This is the first match for both of them in the WWF and anywhere else, and Rick Stockhauser will go on to have two more matches. On August 29th, 1995, he lost to Savio Vega on WWF Superstars, and his final match was on November 21st, 1995, losing to Ahmed Johnson. John Faulkner would have just one more match after this one, losing to Henry O. Godwin on WWF Superstars on October 22nd, 1996. Rick Stockhauser and John Faulkner entered their wrestling careers with a combined record of 0 wins and 5 losses. Truly jobbers at heart.
Wow.
Jeez.
I'm surprised you were able to find that. That's pretty impressive research.
Yeah, really. Congratulations, man. That's like scraping the bottom of the internet for that shit.
It was tough.
Yeah. My God.
Thank you, Ryan. Enlightening as always. Back in the match here, I liked the presentation of Faulkner and Stockhauser. It was a simple red and black scheme, short haircuts, somewhat looking alike. Their appearance suggests to me that they're a decently generic tag team, the perfect fit-ins for working with the Smoking Guns here. There's more talk from commentary about Jacob and Eli Blue than there has been in months. I was genuinely confused by that because it seems like we might have a feud coming up between the Smoking Guns and the Blue Brothers. In the match here, the work is decent. I cannot take anything away from any of the competitors here in this match, but it's a short match, 3 minutes, and the highlight of it is the finisher. The Smoking Guns have a great tag finisher. I can't remember what it's called. I hate to admit that, but Vince doesn't tell us anyway. Maybe it doesn't have a name right now. I'm not sure, but it is certainly impressive to watch.
It's just a great maneuver.
Yeah.
That's it.
Ryan, what did you think of this match?
I agree. I loved seeing this jobber tag team come out in their matching trunks, looking, fairly similar with similar haircuts and physiques. And, they didn't look quite as similar as the King and Vince tried to make it out, though. They kept on making it sound, that was why they brought up the Blue Brothers, because he tried to make it sound like they were that hard to tell apart as the as the Blue Brothers, and that just simply is not true. I have to also agree, for a couple of Monday Night Specials, they're actually not too bad of jobbers. Nothing great. We don't get to see them in there very long at all, but not bad. My third point, I kind of agree with you on everything you've mentioned, Bartlett. The last thing I have mentioned is the impressive finisher by the Smoking Guns. This was a generic short jobber match, but I love that finisher, so it worked for me.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement here. I agree with you guys on the appearance of the jobbers. I thought they looked pretty good in this match. Vince gives us a nice reminder. He says about the Smoking Guns, they know how to mix it up tag team style, and they really do. It's a nice reminder. The finisher is cool. It's kind of like a Doomsday Device style finisher.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
I really like it. The Smoking Guns, they're a team where, if you're going to go to a live event, you're not going to go because they are there. But if you see their match, you're very, entertained by it. They're a good tag team.
Yeah, completely agree. Whenever I was watching this match, and again, this was a short match, so we didn't get a ton of action out of this, but I was reminded of the many times that we've talked about how great the Smoking Guns are with chain moves and hot tags and just quick tags and all of it. I don't know that I can say mastered, but they are pretty goddamn good at the art of the tag team. Not just the nuts and bolts mechanics of it, but the art of the tag team. They are professionals. Speaking of nuts and bolts, not quite so much professionals, we'll take a look at that. It's Barry fucking Deddenski.
Ain't he great?
Barry is wearing a Ain't I Great shirt.
Don't forget the knot.
And guess what, guys? I don't know if you noticed it or not, but at first, because things about this was a fantastic Barry fucking Deddenski segment.
It was.
At first, at the beginning, Barry is speaking about Double J Jeff Jarrett in the past tense. And Vince quickly corrects him. Did either of you notice that?
No. I did not. I didn't catch that. Nice catch.
Yeah, he was speaking about Double J as though he wasn't there anymore. Back to the rest of the sales pitch. Barry shits the bed hard with his sales pitch here. He contradicts himself. He forgets his lines. I mean, I'm not going to quote it. You should, if there's anything about this episode that is worthy of a rewatch, and, you know, there are a few things that are worthy of a rewatch, but this is probably the most disheveled we've seen Barry fucking Deddenski since we started seeing him. He must have gotten into some of that champagne in the babyface locker room last night. But wait a damn minute. Forget that shit. What have we here? It lasts all of 5 seconds, but we get the first mention of Goldust on his way to the World Wrestling Federation. I popped my ass off. That cannot be understated. I am so fucking excited to see Goldust. Again, this was a 5-second, I don't even know if you can call it a vignette.
It was more of a teaser.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way of putting it. It was a teaser trailer. Well, I can gush on that all night long, but...
It was similar to the Hakushi ones we got before he came.
Yes.
Hakushi is coming.
Yes. Yeah. Day and night. Stand by, though. We're going to go to San Francisco to talk to Fatu now. This, I got a little shitty with it before and a little cynical, but this was actually pretty good stuff from Fatu, I thought. He decided to go the right way, you see. And because Fatu decided to go the right way, he's going to wind up wrestling in the Cow Palace. That's a dream for all of us, you know? Mm-hmm. Make a difference, folks, is the point of all this. Ryan, what did you think of Barry effin' Deddenski's sales pitch, the first mention of Goldust, and our newest vignette from Make a Difference Fatu?
So starting with Barry Deddenski, it was great. He's pushing a cassette tape here for With My Baby Tonight. They're trying
comes with
to,
the shirt.
Yeah, they're trying to milk just a little bit more money out of old Double J. I also had to point out that although Barry Deddenski shit the bed on his segment here, he looked absolutely thrilled to be there.
He did.
And he always does. I mean, that's something to point out. He looks like a kid in a candy store every time they show him with just a grin from ear to ear. He looks genuinely ecstatic to be there. So I love his enthusiasm.
Yeah.
The Goldust teaser, I loved it because, just like you, obviously, if we put ourselves back in time, we would have no clue what this was. You know, who's Goldust? What is Goldust? Why do we care? But since we know what Goldust is and who he is and what he is going to be, this is a very exciting moment because we've talked about it a couple months ago, how there's many facets to what brings about the more adult-oriented Attitude Era, but Goldust is certainly one of them because this is not something that would fly on Saturday morning cartoons with the kids. You know, he gets a little bit sexual at times. So yeah, very excited to see Goldust. Fatu's Make a Difference video, it was solid. Like you said, you know, he did a good job explaining himself. I thought it made sense, and any kid who grew up loving wrestling could put themselves in his shoes, you know, looking at these stars, looking up to them, but now being excited because you have a chance to be one of them. So I thought it was good as well.
I agree with you, Ryan, on Barry fucking Deddenski and his enthusiasm. It's always great. The shirt, though, the shirt didn't really wow me too much. It's kind of like a generic Comic Sans type font on the shirt, like nothing exciting. Goldust, yeah, that's fantastic that we're going to get to see the very, very beginning of that character. Talk about somebody just totally owning a gimmick in a character. Can't wait to see the early stages of that. Fatu is It's funny because we know it's not going to work and something else is going to work for him later. But, this is kind of like this make a difference, like do good things, don't do drugs, all that stuff. Sort of like a early version of John Cena, like just the message in general. It obviously hit bigger for John Cena, but it's like it kind of has that feeling to it to me, which is not an easy thing to get over. That type of baby face is not easy to get over. So it's a shame it didn't really work out, but at least something else worked out for him later on.
Once he hiked those shorts up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Both of you guys touched on it here with Barry fucking Deddenski and Barry being genuine. And you're right. I completely agree with you. He always looks like he's just so happy to be there and happy to be alive. He's like a golden retriever.
I was going to say he's like a second-rate Nicky Turturro.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. I mean, maybe third rate. Let's not get too crazy with that. This is Nicky fucking Turturro we're talking about.
That's true. The savior of WrestleMania.
Right.
But Barry fucking Deddenski, I would like to have a beer with Barry. I think he seems like a good guy.
Yeah, Barry would be a fun guy to have a drink with.
And the thing that kind of stuck out to me just now while you were both talking about Fatu is that I think that's what got me about this Fatu video package is that it was very, very genuine. I honestly know nothing aside from, the little bit of family history that you kind of know as a wrestling fan about the Samoan dynasty. Aside from that, I know nothing about Fatu's background. I don't know where he grew up or if he really did have a rough upbringing or if it was just part of this gimmick or what, but it really doesn't matter because his genuine desire to communicate the whole make a difference point to people really comes through in this. And it took you guys mentioning it a couple times there for it to kind of dawn on me. But I think that's what I liked the most about this Fatu video package as opposed to the last one. The last one seemed kind of slapdash and, well, maybe not slapdash, but it seemed jarring since we had just seen the Savage Fatu recently. But this one here, the genuine concern for the future of the youth of America kind of came through loud and clear, and I was impressed by that. Well, that last vignette there with Make a Difference Fatu is going to take us into our next match. Waylon Mercy defeats Gary Scott by pinfall in 2 minutes and 1 second. What can I say? The gimmick and the look works for Waylon Mercy. I was a little bit skeptical at first, but this match finally sold me on Waylon Mercy. I tell you what also works here, gentlemen, is the strangling of Gary Scott in the ring.
Yes.
And apologizing to the referee afterwards. Holding the ropes for Gary Scott, then releasing them and using the tension to whip Gary Scott as he's climbing into the ring also fucking works for me, brother. And the sleeper hold finish here, it was done properly this time. I distinctly remember complaining about it the last time we saw Waylon Mercy in the ring, but this time, in my opinion, he gave it some time to sink in, and to Gary Scott's credit, his frantic flailing, coupled with the insane look on Waylon Mercy's face, came together to really sell this finish to me. They gave it the appropriate amount of time to sink in. Yeah, Joseph, please, what did you think of this match?
Well, I mean, I have a hard-on for Waylon Mercy's gimmick. I think it's awesome. It's just, I hate to say this, but I'm just not impressed with the actual wrestling part of it. Like, it's so strange because we usually say the total opposite, where it's like, these guys are really good wrestlers, but shitty gimmick. Waylon Mercy, for me, it's like, I don't think he's a bad wrestler. I think it's just, there's just nothing that impressive. It's just a situation for me where I love the gimmick, but I'm just not impressed with any of the wrestling. And Waylon Mercy is kind of one of those guys. It's like, it takes me back to like when I would be watching wrestling with my dad. I feel like Waylon Mercy's the guy where I'm like 12 years old, not understanding it at all, but my dad's like laughing his ass off at this. You know what I mean? He's like that, he's that old school type of wrestler. It's just, I think for Dan Spivey, the guy doing the gimmick, I think he's past his prime, you know?
Mm.
Yeah, Joe, I think you're on to something there. You know, Waylon Mercy's gimmick works, and he plays it perfectly. He looks crazy, and it's very believable. His wrestling it's good enough. You know what I mean? It's not bad to where has glaring botches left and right where you're wincing at, is he going to break Gary Scott's neck or anything like that? You know, but the way he plays off the gimmick is a win. You know, the way they even started off, you know, the way he shakes hands and then immediately pulls Scott in and just starts, you know, the cheap shot right out of the get-go. And then this kind of goes with, Joe, you were saying he kind of reminds you of that guy that you would watch with your dad. There was one move in particular that really made me feel that way. That is when he held the ropes up for Gary Scott to come in and then slapped them back down. It felt like an old school local gymnasium heel maneuver. And I mean that in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way. It was entertaining. I enjoyed that spot on Gary Scott. And then after that, you know, it just goes back to Waylon just throwing Gary Scott around like a rag doll before he lays in the chokehold. And Bartlett, I completely agree. This time was 100 times better for his finisher. The ref gave it time to make it look like Gary Scott was actually being choked out and was in danger. You know, it was nothing fantastic, but it was another decent jobber match for Waylon Mercy. It's just a shame he's not going to stick around very long.
Yeah, agreed on that. And you know what? Now that you guys talk about it this way, I'm looking over my notes here, and the things that I highlighted in my breakdown were things such as using the ropes to whip him in the back as he's climbing in the ring, the strangling, the gimmick and the handshakes and apologizing to the referee. None of my notes mention, and the reason that they don't mention anything is because it really wasn't there. I don't have that was a really solid suplex from Waylon Mercy. That was a really solid DDT, or fill in the blank. And to his credit, this was a 2-minute and 1-second match, so there really wasn't a whole lot of time for that kind of thing. But the highlights of the match are the actions that Waylon Mercy did that fit his gimmick as opposed to actual wrestling. So I can definitely see your point here, Joe. If he did any fancy or flashy moves in this match, I didn't note them and I don't remember them, so they must not have been all that great. But I tell you what, I loved the strangling and the apologizing and all of the gimmick shit that we talked about. I think that if we can keep Waylon Mercy to these jobber squash matches and just let him play with the gimmick as opposed to try to put on a clinic, then I think we can get the most amount of enjoyment out of Waylon Mercy that way. But I do agree that it is a shame that he has such a short run, because this is the kind of jobber squash match that I can really get behind. The next segment is the final In Your House report until the next one, that is. But let's not talk about that right now. Let's talk about supersized Stridex pads and SummerSlam.
Targeting that demographic.
Time to take off that fine sheen of grease you've got on your mush there, kid.
After you're done eating all those Skittles.
Tune into SummerSlam with your newly buffered skin. But you know what? Instead of talking about that, let's talk about the Allied Powers match from last night.
Let's not.
Apparently, I don't really want to get into it, but I thought this was very fitting considering the current climate. Apparently, there's some kind of controversy about the 3 count on that one. The Allied Powers want a rematch.
Oh, goody.
They're contesting the outcome of the match. I couldn't be any less excited about that prospect. What can make a shitty match even worse? Let's have a rematch. The Intercontinental Championship match happened, as well as the Lumberjack match, and yes, here it is. Just as I privately suspected would happen, we're going to gloss over the match itself, that being the Lumberjack match, to discuss the interaction that Diesel and Mabel had at the outside during the Lumberjack match, and now King Mabel is claiming himself as the new #1 contender. Without a president or commissioner here, I guess that's how it's going to work for the time being. Stand by, once again, here comes King Mabel himself to give us a promo. Fall to your knees, Big Daddy fool, and bow down to the king. Again, the gimmick works for me. I can't hide it. I can't lie about it. I like the gimmick. And for me, the promo actually isn't bad at all. This is the first time we've got a significant amount of talking out of Mabel that I can remember. And Mabel delivers it with conviction, with Mo simping for him in the background. I've said it a couple times now that the only thing wrong with King Mabel is that his matches suck, which is a pretty big thing to be wrong.
That's an important part.
I'm not trying to minimize that, so don't misunderstand me, but everything else about him right now is entertaining until the bell rings. It's one of those deals. So before we move on, Joe, what did you think about this In Your House report and all of the new information we got from it?
Yeah, I mean, they talk about a final In Your House report, but then he immediately starts talking about SummerSlam. That was strange.
Also, the final In Your House report is a day after In Your House?
Yeah. Yeah, no encore for this, so I don't know what that was all about. But Bartlett, I'm in agreement with you on Mabel. The gimmick definitely works. It's just we know that he's terrible in the ring, and we know from shoot interviews and stuff like that he was dangerous in the ring too. So it's really a shame because the promo was not terrible. The gimmick, the King gimmick works for him. But even if you look at it in 1995, it's still not heavyweight title worthy, in my opinion. Even though it's not bad, it's not at that level for me. So yeah, that's all I have noted there.
Again, I'll just reiterate how odd it is to have the final In Your House report the day after In Your House, but there it is. We also learn that Sid probably is going to be taking on Shawn Michaels in a match soon. I mean, we've seen Shawn Michaels extract a good match out of some terrible wrestlers. So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe he can make this one with Sid entertaining. We also learn that Joe's demonic prophecy has come true. Mabel is calling himself the number one contender for Diesel's belt. I'm in complete agreement with you two. I was shocked at this promo. Mabel was pretty good and, believable here. I think that this may be the first promo that I ever remember out of Mabel. I don't remember ever seeing a promo out of him.
Yeah, same.
After seeing it, I don't understand why we don't get more promos than we do matches out of him, because we know he's a shitty wrestler, but this promo was actually pretty fucking good. Way to go, Mabel, on the promo. Just need to pick up that ring work, buddy.
Well, I don't think Mabel is going to be picking up ring work anytime soon. He's more likely to pick up a can of Weight Watchers shake stuff before he'll be picking up his ring work. It's just, it's such a goddamn shame. I was popping on this, maybe not popping my ass off, but I was popping on this at how surprisingly good it was, this promo. And like I've said before, I mean, this is a gimmick that he comes by honestly. As shitty as the King of the Ring was, he earned the crown, or, in air quotes, earned the crown. It's not a fucking pirate. It's not fill in the blank with all the other shit, but shame he sucks.
His bow down to the king. It was great.
Yeah, I felt it. Well, the In Your House report will take us into our final match of the night. Bret the Hitman Hart defeats Hakushi with Shinja by submission in 9 minutes and 21 seconds. I continue to enjoy the White Angel gimmick with Hakushi. The theatrics are perfect. The spectacle of it is perfect. And I can really see how this was like a juxtaposition against The Undertaker. It works. It works for me. And what's even more perfect is that Hakushi busts out that decapitated head again. That was very cool to see. But let's not focus on this for a minute. Let's go to something completely different. Let's forget our main event for a minute and let's pitch next week's Raw. Because do you know what is going to happen on next week's Raw? Savio Vega and Razor Ramon are sticking as a tag team for now. and they will be challenging Yokozuna and Owen Hart for the tag team championship.
Of course.
Isn't that just amazing? I'm so excited for that. Back in the match, big pop for Bret Hart. And let's talk about ptomaine poisoning again. I can't believe they brought it up. I liked how things began here with Shinja fucking with Bret Hart before the bell. That was very cool, getting us a good heel start to things. And then the work begins. The athleticism of both competitors here has to be noted. Both Bret and Hakushi are doing great work. The reversal that Hakushi puts into the Irish whip from the corner, sending Hart into a sideways baseball slide into the ring post. Excellent, excellent spot to watch. Unfortunately, due to some poor camera work, we didn't get to see the follow-up baseball slide into Hart from Hakushi to cap that sequence off. We do get to see Hakushi do a handspring into an elbow splash in the corner, though. The speed and coordination was immaculate, and that is something that was maintained throughout this match. The key word here being timing. These guys had fucking timing. Even when there's a slight miscommunication, they immediately work it into a side Russian leg sweep. If you blinked, you would have missed it. One guy zigged while the other guy zagged whenever they were engaged in the center of the ring, but they fixed it immediately, and it was so goddamn smooth. Something that felt different for me in this match was that the handful of false finishes, and whenever I say handful, I mean less than a handful, really, but the first one especially had a feeling or energy of urgency for me. I was on the edge of my seat for the false finishes, which is something that usually doesn't happen with me. The Vulcan nerve pinch, that must be a Japanese thing, because Hakushi puts it on, and I have to admit, it kind of brought me down a little bit, even though it was short, and I understand the need for it here to take a quick breather. I was still just a touch disappointed to see Yokozuna's fucking signature move going on in there. I was really hoping for some action off the top rope while Bret was laying outside, and at first I was a little disappointed because they seemed to call an audible on it, but the new move paid off incredibly. Hakushi doing handsprings across the ring and over the top rope to splash a standing Bret on the outside. Once again, I popped my ass off. I did feel that the splash from Bret onto Hakushi and Shinja was a little too much, though. Once again, I had flashbacks to AEW. They were lining up to catch him. It was just a little ham-fisted for me. But Shinja getting punched was great. I don't know what was so satisfying about that, but something about it was satisfying. And that Shinja getting punched, that was apparently the signal to crank it up to 11, because the action and energy really takes off after that. Again, the timing, the fucking timing, the execution of Bret's superplex on Hakushi was absolutely perfect, as was the application of the sharpshooter and the submission. After the bell, Bret Hart goes to work on Shinja, too. That was some good stuff, pal. But wait, what's this? Jean-Pierre Lafitte is here, and he has stolen Hakushi's burlap sack with the fake severed head within. Man, that was a bit of a downer for me. The fans, though, and this picked it back up again, the fans fucking love Bret Hart. And you know what? Bret Hart loves the fucking fans. As he is exiting the arena, he isn't just giving high fives, he is throwing his entire upper body into the crowd for people to hug him, pat him on the back, cover them in sweat, however you want to think about it. Bret was definitely showing some love to the fans, and that is something that we generally do not see any of our superstars do here on Monday Night Raw. Ryan, what did you think of this match?
I loved Hakushi coming out with a burlap sack with Bret Hart's head again. We loved it the first time we saw it, and it's great when we see it here too. And then it starts off fast. Bret Hart doesn't even make his way into the ring, and Hakushi attacks him, and he's dropping him on the crowd barrier outside before he tosses him back in the ring. And that's going to be kind of an omen of how this match is going to be, because for the most part, outside of the nerve pinch little breather there, this is a pretty balls to the wall match, and the timing is perfect. Hakushi, towards the beginning, I'm not even real sure what the move's called, but he does an Irish whip to Bret Hart into the corner, and then Bret Hart is on the mat, and he kind of flips himself up and pushes himself up off the ropes and tries to do a belly flop onto Bret, but Hart puts his knees up just in time to reverse it. But it's just, move after move in this match was perfect. I also loved the King screaming every time Bret Hart did any move. I mean, it could be a simple punch to the face. Oh, look at him, he's cheating. I got a kick out of that. There's that one spot that you talked about. It's a little bit of an odd spot right before they went to commercial. Hakushi throws the Hitman out of the ring, and then he quickly jumps up to the top rope, and he's staring him down like he's about to jump at him. But he doesn't do anything. And I think maybe because they were going to commercial break, like someone gave him the tap, like, hey, we're going to commercial break, don't do that. So he doesn't jump off. But then when we do come back, Hakushi does this great looking, I don't know, it's like a couple cartwheels into a backflip over the top rope onto Bret Hart. Just unbelievable. I mean, the acrobatics out of this man is really something to watch. Something we've been asking for months. They've been leading this thing up with Bret Hart and Hakushi for 4 months, as they showed us earlier today. And finally, we're getting this match, the match that we want. And we are being treated to a phenomenal match. 100 miles an hour, pretty much the whole time. After Shinja gets involved, they crank it up to 11. The exchanges in the ring just start happening fast. They're suplexing each other. They're flying off the top rope. And then Hitman lands that great looking suplex off the top rope that he then gets the shooter for the finisher. I love this match, and it's a little bit tough because if they would have been given this match the day before, we had a couple terrible matches in that In Your House. If we would have gave this some time to be a 20-minute match like the Double J match, this could have been a contender also for Match of the Year. I don't know, maybe it still is, but at 9 minutes, I feel like it didn't quite get there. You know what I mean? It was almost there. If they would have had another 5-6 minutes to play this match out, it might have got there. But man, what a treat.
Does the term ptomaine poison mean anything to you?
Fuck you. Fuck you. God damn it.
I agree with your last point with the Match of the Year situation. We were so spoiled last year with that Bret Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid match on Raw.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I just got to get that out of my head because this was a really good match that should absolutely be in talks of Match of the Year, especially, best match that we've seen on Raw, possibly, in 95. Yeah. At the beginning, did you guys hear that Vince was saying that that'll be a fine when he's using the railing? I forget who it was, Bret Hart or Hakushi. One of them was like throwing the other into the railing, and Vince is like, oh, that'll be a fine. He's going to get a fine in the mail tomorrow. I was like, what? Where did that come from?
From what president?
The baseball slide by Bret Hart into the post, that was flawless. That was a beautiful move. And I've said this before, and nobody is better at throwing themselves into the turnbuckle. Nobody's better than Bret and Owen Hart. Like those two guys are they throw themselves into that turnbuckle so hard. I can actually feel it. Like it fucking hurts my back just watching it. There was a spot, Hakushi puts a backbreaker on Bret Hart, but there was like a series of moves like right before that. Some kind of reversal shit they were doing. I was like, holy fuck. It was amazing.
Yeah.
I should have rewound it. I wish I would have rewound it and watched it again, but it was awesome. That crazy backflip shit outside, that had the crowd totally shook. Like, that took the air out of the building.
Yeah.
When Hakushi did that, they were just like, whoa. You could hear it. Bartlett, you mentioned that bad camera work, and I agree. Like during a lot of this match, the camera work was just fucking horrible, which is also a shame. The nerve pinch didn't bother me too much. I mean, we hate that move for good reason. But I don't know. It didn't last long enough for it to bother me.
The reason we hate it with Yokozuna is because he's in the ring for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's one of the moves he does.
Yeah. When I saw it, I was like, oh, God, no. But then it only lasted like not even 20 seconds. I was like, okay, that's fine. Shinja, man, he could take fucking bumps. Like, that dude's not bad at doing that, which is
he took that pile
surprising.
driver pretty good, too, at the end.
Yeah, he did. He's not a wrestler. I forget his background, but he's not a wrestler at all. Bret Hart had this crowd, this Louisville crowd, in his pocket the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
This seemed like, to me, it just seemed like Hakushi's swan song. Like, this was it for him. Like, for some reason, I just had that feeling. The end of the match, my only complaint is I feel like they went into the sharpshooter kind of quick. Like, there must have been a moment where they were like, all right, let's go home. And it just happened. To me, it just didn't really build up into it. It kind of came out of nowhere. But great communication, considering there's probably a language barrier here. Just excellent communication. As far as the end, Pierre, what a fucking downer, right? I mean,
yeah.
You know what would have been great that I was thinking is they should have not debuted, but had Isaac Yankem come out and just beat the shit out of Bret Hart, building up into SummerSlam.
Exactly. That's the thing I didn't understand. Why no Isaac Yankem here?
Right. Like, are they starting a feud with Pierre now? Like, what the hell?
I mean, I guess they did wrestle each other in a dark match, right? In your house.
Yeah, they're seeing if it'll work. So we'll see. But awesome match.
I can't disagree with any of that. Once again, you guys have kind of helped me clarify my thoughts on this. I was trying to think of a way to determine as to whether or not this was going to be a match of the year candidate in my mind. And Ryan, I think you had a fantastic point with it was too short. If we could have gotten another, even 5 minutes out of this, I think it would be up there. I think it would be in solid contention. And Joe, to your point, especially because it's actually on Raw and not on a pay-per-view. And this is absolutely a discussion that we can have later on in the future whenever it's time to really sort this out. But for me personally, if we're asking me right now which is the better match, I'm going with Shawn Michaels and Double J. That's a kind of a no-brainer for me right now. But this is absolutely something that is worth getting deeper into and doing a stronger play-by-play on later on in the year, even if we want to do it as, maybe not a contender, but as an honorable mention, because I cannot overstate, how good this fucking match was. This was an amazing match. Just too fucking short.
Yep.
Moving along here, this is something that I don't even know what to say. Let's go to Dean Douglas with the report card.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, motherfucker? I watch Raw on my desktop computer here at my little command console, and I do notes on my laptop. So, the big screen laptop is what I watch Raw on. I do notes on the little screen, and I use headphones while I'm watching. All of that is a way to say that I literally ripped the headphones off my head and just spiked them off the ground when Dean Douglas starts dragging his fucking fingernails across the chalkboard.
Yeah.
God, I can't stand it.
Well, that's what it was intended to do.
Yeah, well, it fucking worked. But you know what didn't work was all the rest of it. Dean Douglas gives us the many definitions of knowledge, 5 in total, and proceeds to act pedantic and pedagogic in this vignette, which is the point. And I mean, I get it that's what he is supposed to be. He's supposed to be talking down to us here. I loved Shane Douglas in ECW.
The franchise.
Yes, but this was fucking horrible. And it's just another occupational gimmick that comes across as lame and nonsensical. Why is a teacher deciding to wrestle here all of a sudden? What grudge is he bringing with him? I mean, I don't know. We haven't heard the rest of the story with Dean Douglas, but at this point, Jean-Pierre Lafitte's fucking motivation is more cogent than the dean of some fucking advanced education place. Next week, King Mabel in action, as well as the Body Donnas and Bam Bam Bigelow. Don't forget that tag team match for the tag titles between 4 singles. I can't get over that. The fucking tag titles are up for grabs between 4 singles.
And let's not forget, we just watched a legitimate tag team win tonight, but they are not going for the belt.
Yep.
And let's not forget that Razor and Savio got buried against Men on a
That's
Mission.
right. They had the job.
Yep.
Just yesterday, and they're getting a title shot.
Mm-hmm.
Something tells me they are probably going to keep on getting buried. I don't know. I didn't watch ahead, but
I have a feeling they're jobbing next week as well.
well, you know what though, we didn't get enough of him earlier. Let's talk to Shawn Michaels here for a minute.
Yeah.
This little back and forth between the King and Shawn Michaels was very one-sided, I felt. And in that, the King did very well. The King did a good job of doing his heel verbal smackdown and setting up all of the correct information that we needed to know and all that kind of thing. And this kind of touches back, I feel, maybe on Joe, what you mentioned earlier about this is where Shawn really started turning into an asshole. Shawn Michaels was just a little too much with his attitude. And by that, I don't mean attitude as in cocky Heartbreak Kid attitude. I mean, it didn't feel like he was even trying to respond to the King at all and maintain this dialogue, if that makes sense. I can't think of a better way to put it. He was just kind of, it seemed like he was just kind of dialing it in.
To me, it seemed like they threw him in at the end here because they needed to fill an extra 30 seconds, and they just said, "Hey, Shawn, here's a microphone. Say some stuff." You know what I mean? Like he had zero time to get ready for it is kind of how it came off to me.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's totally possible. But at the same time, if they're strapped for time, they shouldn't have fucking tapped Hakushi out so goddamn fast.
True.
Who knows what really happened? And it's all moot anyway because this was all edited. You know, they went through post-editing for this shit. So I don't remember this being live. They didn't claim this as being
No, at the
live
beginning
show,
it said live.
Yeah, it was live.
Okay.
Yeah. This is the live show in Kentucky.
Okay, my bad. Anyway, I still feel the point still stands. I mean, I don't know. I was put off by this, honestly. Shawn just kind of, he was too busy flipping his hair and looking back and forth instead of making a legitimate rebuttal to the King. And that's it. We fade to black. Ryan, what did you think about Dean Douglas's vignette debut and the way that we ended Raw tonight?
Dean Douglas's vignette debut was stupid. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. He just kind of gives us vocabulary words, and, you know, I don't have anything against Dean Douglas. He doesn't flub his words here, and to be honest, he's actually not too bad of an actor. You know, he delivers his lines perfectly well, but the vignette is just kind of dumb and boring. And so is the gimmick. I'm really not sure where this is going, but it did not get me excited in the least for a Dean Douglas match. The Shawn Michaels stuff at the end, to me, it didn't bother me nearly as much, only because it was just very forgettable. It just kind of reminded me of every other short 20-second ending to Raw that we've had over the last 2 years, where they just kind of throw it together at the end. So I don't have too much to say about that.
Yeah, the Dean Douglas vignette, I was very curious to hear what you guys had to say about it because I hated it.
Yeah.
I wrote down here at some point, like, I'm sorry, but I am bored to death with this. Like, it is going on too long. And why is he teaching to an empty classroom? Like, he's teaching to a class that's not even there.
COVID. It was virtual.
Just poorly done. This is just Vince being an asshole to a guy who had success in another promotion, you know, which he was known to do. You know, slapping that occupational gimmick on a guy who can cut a great promo and can wrestle. So it's a shame, really. It's just, this is on Vince. I'm sorry, but this is just...
Yeah.
And kind of like I pointed out, if Dean was given the chance to give a actual promo, I don't think he'd do bad because he doesn't mess up here. It's the gimmick that's failing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dean Douglas could be like a Mr. Perfect type character a little bit.
Yep. Yep.
A little bit more realistic and realistic as a wrestler. It's just a shame that Vince totally fucked this up. It really is. And the recap for next week and the Shawn Michaels interview, Bartlett, I kind of agree with you. It just seemed like, Shawn he wasn't engaged completely.
Yeah.
I liked Jerry Lawler kind of talking shit, trying to get him going, but it went nowhere.
All right. Well, that's it. The episode is over and we fade to black. So let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you keep going with it?
Well, I'll pick up where we left off. The low light for me was the Dean Douglas vignette. It's the first one that we see, and we already fucking hate it, so it's a shame. And the highlight for me is Hakushi versus Bret Hart. I thought this was Hakushi's probably his best match. I mean, we saw another match with Bret Hart that was really good as well. But yeah, these two they just work very well together.
So I'm going to be pretty much following right in line with you, Joe, here. Highlight, absolutely, the Bret Hart Hakushi match. This was just a phenomenal match. It's everything we've been wanting to see out of these two. I absolutely loved it. It's good shit. Low light, also in agreement, the vignette from Dean Douglas. It was terrible. I didn't think tonight was a very bad Raw. We kicked it off with a strong match. We had a couple decent jobber matches. We got a great teaser for Goldust. We had a absolute knockout final match, but then we ended it with this just boring, stupid Dean Douglas vignette. So there's the low light for me.
We're going 3 for 3 here, gentlemen. I completely agree. The low light is the Dean Douglas vignette at the end. The highlight is Bret Hart and Hakushi. But I feel that honorable mention needs to go to two other things here. Barry fucking Deddenski. That's the most entertained I've been by Barry since he first started popping up. So definitely honorable mention to him. And also honorable mention to Waylon Mercy, because his match in this episode of Raw really helped me to appreciate the gimmick and everything that was going on with it, even though it was a jobber squash match, and even though the wrestling was a little poor. Honorable mention to that too, but neither of those two can hold a candle to that Bret Hart Hakushi match. So yeah, we're all on the same level here, gentlemen. It's good to hear, because as you say, this was a pretty good episode of Raw, I felt. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around July 24th, 1995 for us?
Yeah, the Wrestling Observer gives us a nice little breakdown of the Raw that we just discussed today. Dave Meltzer has some comments about the show, and when I read these comments, I thought, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff that we agree with here. Pretty much right on point, some of it. He first talked about the short vignette on Goldust. Obviously didn't say much about it, just pointed out that it happened. He also talked about the Dean Douglas vignette and said that the Douglas vignette was a major disappointment and his great delivery on ECW interviews was non-existent. This was a segment that was boring and seemed to go on forever with no substance. So I think we
complete agreement there.
Are in complete agreement there. He also says that aside from the Dean Douglas vignette, this was the best Raw of the year because of the Bret Hart versus Hakushi blow-off match. Dave Meltzer also says this is rumored to be Hakushi's last WWF match.
Oh, no.
This was Hakushi's best performance in the WWF, and Dave Meltzer gave this match 4 stars.
Fair.
Another thing worth pointing out during this match, he said something in the Observer that kind of reminded me of Excalibur always saying the names of these moves that you're like, what the fuck? Did he just make that shit up? So Dave Meltzer points out that crazy backflip that Hakushi did, he calls it a space flying tiger drop.
Oh.
And
okay.
So it does have a name.
Dave Meltzer says this was the first space flying tiger drop that he has ever seen performed in the U.S. So apparently that was a move that was used a lot in Japan.
It was fucking impressive, whatever it was.
Yes, it was.
I should have drank a 14-year-old scotch while I was watching it if it was that fucking rare. God.
Yeah. The last comment is that he mentions that Shawn Michaels beat an overweight Jimmy Del Rey. Even though Del Rey looked way too heavy, he showed as a performer that he's probably the most unheralded great worker in the WWF. So a little bit of a compliment there at the end. And that is all.
After telling him to hit the Slim Fast.
Yes, Tommy Lasorda.
Get back to no, I don't know about that, but he just needs to get back in the broad plowing business.
Yeah, after that pelvic injury, he's gained a few pounds.
Yeah.
More cardio in the bedroom.
You'd think with all of the steroids and shit that they prescribe to him to relieve the inflammation from the various STDs he carries that he would, have more motivation to hit the gym and cut some fat, but oh well. That's it, folks. We're done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us. And if you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can find us on every major social media and podcast subscription platform by searching up the handle Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. While you're there, don't forget to click subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know about the fastest growing wrestling podcast in the world. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on July 31st, 1995, with matches featuring Major Yates, King Mabel, and many more. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.